This is at least number 4 because the back injury, that was a concussion. This is 4 in less than 2 years. What do you do? And before we address that, Michael, Tua himself talked about that 2 years ago with Maria Taylor for Football Night in America after he was in the process of recovering from that horrific Thursday night in Cincinnati incident where he was taken via ambulance directly to a hospital. Here's what he said about whether he would retire from the game.
Yeah, I think I considered it, for a time, having sat down with my family, having sat down with my wife and having those kind of conversations. But really, it would be hard for me to walk away from this game with how old I am, with my son. I always dreamed of growing, playing as long as I could to where my son knew exactly what, he was watching his dad do. And, it's my health, it's my body, and I feel like this is what's best for me and my family. So, I love the game of football. If I didn't, I would have quit a long time.
Okay, horrible job by me on the throw. That was not an NBC Football Night in America interview of Tua Tagovailoa. That was a press conference after the dust settled on his 2022 season, which culminated in a Christmas Day concussion that nobody knew about when it happened. He was diagnosed the next day because he was off, and they're like, is Tua okay? We should check him. With Maria during the season, he talked about, in a roundabout way, the pressure he might have been getting. Do his parents want him to keep playing? Does his family want him to keep playing? And there was a way that he answered that made you think maybe they're starting to have that conversation. But, when you listen to him, Michael, at the end of the day, the only way he's not going to play is if someone with a hell of a lot of sway talks him out of it.
And I think that's already happened, Mike. He told Dan Le Batard that his mother asked him to retire. He had a conversation with her last year, I guess it was. And, hey, listen to mom. Always listen to mom. But ultimately, he gave you the answer right there at that press conference. That's the answer that most people in his position and his profession will give. I'm in my 20s. I love football. I've been playing football since I was 5 or 6 years old. This is a great game. I can't imagine stepping away from it. And look, it seems a little crass to bring up, but Mike, you're right. You had the right instincts last night when you were thinking about the financial part of it. This is not only his passion, this is his business. And it's a lot of money. So it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, why doesn't he walk away? Well, if he walks away, and you give the distinction of if he walks away, he's cleared, and he walks away from it. He's walking away from the game, and he's walking away from a lot of money. I just don't know if a lot of people would do that, even knowing the risk. It's not thousands of dollars. It's millions of dollars. So it's really a complex decision. And if he did walk away, if he did all the things that Tony Gonzalez mentioned it last night, and others who have floated it out there. If he did that, I think that would be news. That would be shocking. I think we'd all be stunned if he actually did it.
Only one player that I can think of did that, and that was Chris Borland, the linebacker from Ohio State after 1 year in the NFL. He was with the 49ers, and he retired. And I remember there were some in the media that were trying to basically speak into existence there'd be a mass exodus from football, because Chris Borland was the first one to go. He'd be the Pied Piper to get people to wake up and walk away, and it never happened. And I can't think of anyone, Michael, and this is the distinction. Has there been a player who has had that last concussion and that was it? No more clearance to play. The only guy I can think of that would have come even close to that is Javid Best, first-round pick of the Lions in 2010. He had horrible concussion history at Cal. And there was a moment that looked fairly innocuous against the 49ers. It was the Jim Harbaugh, Jim Schwartz meet me at midfield game. During that game, Javid Best came down on his head, and it wasn't, we were in the process of evolving away from all the big hits that would become VHS tapes that the NFL would sell to just fairly innocuous things that would leave guys concussed. His head hit the ground, and we never saw him again playing football. That was it. He may be the only one that ever got to the point where the doctors just said, I'm not signing my name to this piece of paper allowing you to play. And that is, as I said earlier, the $167 million question. Because if the doctors clear him and he says, I retire, all that money's gone. And if the Dolphins want to be jerks, if they want to go letter of the contract, he's got to pay back almost all of his $42 million signing bonus if he retires, if he's cleared to play. If he's not cleared to play, then he keeps every penny. And look, it's reality in the National Football League. This is a business. They're not going to want to hand the guy $167 million to never play again if he chooses not to play, if he's being cleared to play. Back to your original point, this is the risk they assume. This is what they sign up for. And when he signed that contract several weeks back, that's what he's signing up for again. He's renewing his vows with this thing that he knows will likely, at any given play, every given play has the risk that he's going to have another concussion. And when he's cleared, guess what? Same thing. Every play, risk of a concussion.
And I got to say, Mike, I feel for him because he's aware of it. The training that he's done, he talked about bulking up and doing jiu-jitsu. And we've heard players talk about this before as if they can do something to prevent injuries. And for a while, we all kind of believed it. I live in New England and Boston, so I've heard Tom Brady and the TB12 method for years now. It's a shock that I'm not indoctrinated now with the TB12 method. I heard him talk about it so much. But he used to talk about this. He'd look at injuries in the league and he would come back and say, well, I don't get injured like that now because I know how to fall. I practice falling and I practice all these things. And it's really a dangerous field to go into, a dangerous slope, because you're suggesting that some of these things could be prevented. And for Tua, jiu-jitsu is not going to prevent it. A guardian cap is not going to prevent it. It might make you feel safer. It might make you a little bit safer. But think about the concussions of Tua, and I'm glad you made the distinction of diagnosed concussions, the ones that we know about. The one last night was different than the one on national TV where he slammed down. So one, he's running out of the pocket and trying to run by somebody. One, he's being sacked and being thrown down. So you can't really practice the situations. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know. And sometimes a concussion happens, and we know enough about this now since we've studied it and heard about it. Sometimes it doesn't even appear to be a big deal, and it is. So I just wonder, what the conversation or what the thought process is for Tua this morning as he thinks about another one that we know about. And he's the only one who knows how many he's actually had.
And, you make a great point, too. Last night's wasn't some devastating blow to the head. It looked like a fairly innocuous, normal play. I don't advocate it for quarterbacks, and I don't know how aggressively they're coached to slide in that situation. If you're a competitor, if you're trying to give your team a spark, you're down 31-10 week 2. It's a game that carries a lot of significance because if you lose to the Bills, you have to go play them in Buffalo in early November. They sweep you. Good luck winning the division when you have to make up 3 games to a team that has swept you. So I can understand how that energy takes over. And, yeah, you probably should get down once you've gotten the first down, because the blade of grass he was fighting for then was not the goal line and it was not the first down line. It was just a little bit extra beyond the first down that he had gained. So, in theory, he should have gotten down. But he delivered what was a fairly routine football hit. It wasn't anything that would have made anyone say, oh, my gosh. But it was the reaction, the fencing posture that we are far more sensitive to now than we were back when it happened to Case Keenum, and the league let him keep playing without even an evaluation on the sideline. So kudos to the league for coming out of the dark ages on these things. But it's not the kind of thing, we see guys get hit like that all the time. And I think that's what changes this. It wasn't getting whipsawed down to the ground by the Bengals defensive lineman and having his head violently snap against the turf. This was something that we see constantly, and then, and you throw in the history. And all in that moment, it was just like last year was a hard reset, and we forgot. Like, he played 17 games, and hey, I guess the jiu-jitsu is working. He knows how to fall now. Hey, but he's past this. And the Dolphins clearly thought he was, or they wouldn't have given him the contract that has so much money in injury guarantees. And it's that one moment, and it's like it happens, and we're stunned, but then the next feeling is, well, hell, we should have known this. Why are we surprised? We're surprised, and that was my experience. I go from being surprised to telling myself, well, why the hell are you surprised? This is the one guy that would have been the most likely to be in this situation.
Yeah, and Mike, a few years ago, was talking to, here in Boston, BU works closely. That's where a lot of the CTE research happens. And there's something called the Concussion Legacy Foundation. So there are a lot of speakers who come through Boston and talk about some of the risks and some of the things that aren't talked about prominently with concussions. And this is one of those things where they tell you the signs, and we all know about fencing now. I didn't talk about it that much 5 and 10 years ago. But also, once it happens to you, once you just get in that circle of getting concussions, how it's more likely to happen again and again. And there's no guarantee that that next one won't be bigger or cause more problems. So it's there. The research is there. We know about the risk of concussions. And as you said, we know about what this sport is. In that moment, you run that clip and you have Tua lowering his shoulder, and who's meeting him there? Damar Hamlin. So you have Tua and Damar Hamlin. What a split screen. What a story. I mean, you can look at it either way. If you want to look at it positively, what a story of redemption. What a comeback story where you have Tua, who's had concussion history, and Damar Hamlin, cardiac arrest on the field, and they're back playing football on Thursday night. It's great. Or you can say that's a cautionary tale. That collision right there. Damar Hamlin, Tua Tagovailoa, this is football, and we sit back and we enjoy it and we're entertained by it, but we must know that things can happen because we've seen it with these two players and many others.
And Michael, the similarity as well with the hit that Damar Hamlin received, helmet to that chest area that caused, they never completely and thoroughly and specifically diagnosed it. They eliminated all other causes, commotio cordis, that thing that has caused youth baseball players throughout the country to die over the years by taking a line drive to the chest. Your heart stops beating, and the whole experience was very beneficial to awareness, presence of AEDs. That was a godsend. But it was the same kind of hit. The one that was absorbed by Hamlin, the one that was delivered by Tua Tagovailoa. And that's the kind of hit that we see all the time. And that's at the core of what football is. You can't eliminate that risk from the game because that risk is so central. One guy hits another guy, and he's wearing a helmet. And the helmet might be involved in the hit, and the helmet might hit the player in the chest. The player who gets hit could be injured. The player who delivers the hit could be injured, and that's exactly what we saw. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.